Welcome to the Notorious Scoundrels, a Star Wars Legion podcast bringing you the latest news, general perspective, and competitive discussion.
Hello and welcome back to the Notorious Scoundrels podcast. I'm joined by Jay and Ryan Slawowski. What's up, gentlemen?
How's it going, guys?
So now that you've got two extremely long Polish names, I like that you only decided to say one of them.
Yep.
Yeah.
That's fair.
It's like, listen, I'm not doing this twice.
Well, I don't normally say your full name, Jay. So, but I feel like, I don't know, Ryan's a guest. I feel like, it adds a little gravitas to the.
I get gravitas now. Excellent.
Yeah.
I'm not used to this over in STABcast land.
It's a big step up from the tin cans and string that you guys use on the STABcast.
That's right.
Yeah, Ryan, of course, is from STABcast, which is another Star Wars Legion podcast. Do you want to tell us a little bit about that?
If you like Star Wars Legion and nonsense, we're the show because we are about that in equal parts. So yeah, we're four friends that just kind of disagree and yell at each other and have very little factual evidence for the ideas we present.
Yep, that's about right.
Yeah, that sounds right. Yeah,
but we try to be entertaining while we do it. So that's what we got going.
Yeah.
What is?
Go ahead.
Hang on, I'm sorry. What is that you're drinking there? Is that water or?
So this is just water. It should be moonshine as it disappears in the background, but it is an old bourbon bottle that I now use.
Okay.
As a water bottle.
I was gonna say that is very interesting.
I was going to stop you from asking because when we used to do Recover the Supplies, and that was with Krabick and Brendan Franz, we all used to drink a lot while we would do that show. And actually, Ryan started that. So that was.
I mean, if I'm going to spend 2-3 hours with you three, I'm going to drink.
Yeah,
that's fair.
Oh, man.
Yeah. Well, if it was whiskey or something like that, I would not object. But I was just curious because that was a very unique looking receptacle there.
I try.
All right. Today we're going to talk about waffling, which I certainly am a self-described expert in. And apparently it's been contagious because Jay has said that.
Yeah. It's so bad.
We do, of course, have Nova Open coming up in 3 weeks.
Yep.
And I'm painting what I think I'm going to play, but it's still like a 40% chance that's what I end up playing.
Sure.
Yeah.
So we'll talk about that. We're going to talk about how to prep for a tournament generally, how to practice, etc. But before we do that, let's get to housekeeping.
Yeah, okay. So, you guys know the drill. You've been listening. If you like the podcast or if you've read one of our blog posts, join us on Patreon, support us on Patreon. We pay our blog writers and everybody. So that's how we do it, is through Patreon. And, right now we are giving away print and play cards. Some of our Patreon members have already gotten, Kyle, I've been playing coy with the audience for the last 3 or 4 weeks. I'm just going to come out and say it. If you're at certain levels on the Patreon, I'm going to send you the Battle Force cards. We're printing those and handing them out. And if you were at Gen Con, Ryan, unfortunately, I didn't see you. I would have given you a set, but we had a set at Gen Con that we were handing out as well.
I see how it is.
Yeah. Sorry, buddy. If you were there, you would have gotten one. I mean, all these.
I was there. I don't want to hear it.
I had people messaging me on Discord going, "Where are you right now?" And I'm like, "I'm at this booth," and they're like, "Can you stay there for 2 minutes?" And I'm like, "Yeah." And then they came over, and I just handed them a pack of cards.
That's funny.
Yeah, that was fun. But yeah, so join us on Patreon. You help support all the great content that we put out, and we send you free shit. Next, you could go to fifthtrooper.com. You could go to the blog, the store. We got all kinds of stuff there. Stormtide, we're about to send out our next box of Stormtide, which is our narrative campaign that comes out monthly. We have some pretty exciting stuff coming up for that I'm really jacked about. So that's going to be great. I know we've gotten a lot of new Stormtide players in the last month and a half, so I'm really glad you guys are on board. And then as usual, check out all our tools, Legion HQ, which is our list builder, Legion Quick Guide, which we basically took the rules reference and now the forum as well. And we put it all in one tool that's alphabetical. So for people like Ryan, who judge a lot of events, he can use Legion Quick Guide to get all the rulings, and the forum rulings too now, Ryan. So like,
Yeah, because those are a pain in the neck to find.
yeah,
So.
they really are. And then our Legion stats tool, which gives you all the stats from all the recent tournaments and stuff. So Ryan, let's do your housekeeping. Where can people find you guys, and what are you guys up to?
Yeah, I mean, we're not up to much. I just got back from Gen Con.
That's really a promotion for your whole...
yeah. No, it's STABcast. You can find us at STABcast wherever finer podcasts are found, and we ramble on the internet for 4 or 5 hours a month. So
yeah,
it's a good time. If you like I said, if you like nonsense, we already kind of plugged me earlier. Or if you want to buy cool fanny packs that Fifth Trooper doesn't sell, you can buy STABcast fanny packs.
That's true. I've seen them. They are of the top quality. They're very good. You guys did a great job on those.
We didn't do anything. We paid someone else to. It's great.
I have one of those fanny packs.
You do.
Yeah,
you do. You took it off my corpse.
Oh man, I will say, listen, it's the only time I'm ever going to say anything nice about you guys. So I think you guys do some of the best audio battle reports that, like, it's something that we've always struggled with. Like, how do you recount a game and make it interesting? And you guys do a great job, great job with that. Top notch.
Taking a very spatial thing and condensing it into a non-spatial medium.
But you guys have really perfected that. So if you got, for those of you at home and you want to, Ryan and Tim and the guys over there, I'm not going to name everybody. I really only like Ryan and Tim.
Yeah, that's fair.
I know the rest of their names.
You like Tim?
Yeah, just for really dark reasons. And so
I know more.
Yeah, but and they're great players. So listening to them talk about the game and break down their games, I think, can only make you a better Legion player. So I highly recommend going and checking that out. Not Will or Ben. If they're talking about a game, just shut it off until Ryan and Tim
hit the little skip 30 seconds ahead a couple times.
Oh, 30 seconds. You
well, a couple. You got to hit it a handful of times. Yeah. Just kidding. You guys are great. All right. Should we talk about waffling?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I feel like I'm going to be on the other side of the boat here. This will be interesting.
So for those that do not know, I am constantly posting lists, mostly in our internal Fifth Trooper Discord, sometimes in other ones. But I'm just like, every day at least I post one list, and sometimes like leading up to a tournament, it's like 3 a day. I feel like. Now
I want to clear this up. We all look at lists all the time. But Kyle is saying is when he posts a list, he's actually considering playing that list, like pulling the minis off of the shelf, ready to play that list. Not just like, hey, I was just thinking about this list. What do you guys think? And no, he's like, should I bring this tomorrow? Like, this is.
Yeah, I don't usually just randomly post lists that I'm like, hey, this would be cool. If I post a list that's like, all right, guys, I'm finally to the point where I'm deciding between 2 lists for this tournament. Here's option A and option B. And then next day I'll have 2 completely different lists. And I'll be like, all right, I'm finally decided that it's going to be one of these 2 lists.
Yeah.
Never mind that they're completely different from the 2 lists that I said the same thing about yesterday.
Right.
So, yeah, it's unfortunately or fortunately, depending on how you look at it, my Legion journey has been circuitous and has led me progressively through all 4 factions. So I have a lot of options.
Yes, you do.
And I have been known to do things like flip coins.
I've seen it. It is known.
Let Facebook decide.
Let Facebook decide. I let my daughter decide once. I put I think it was Darth Maul, Dooku, and Jedi Luke in front of her, the 3 models, and I asked her to pick one. I think she was 3 at the time. She might have been 4. Anyway, and she picked Darth Maul. So that's what I
Of
played.
course. Yeah.
Now it's not like I'm just randomly like I'm not using the random Legion list generator here. Like these are all
Sure.
things that I've thought out and I would be like happy to play. But even still, yeah, it's the waffling is bad.
So let me ask this question: as someone who doesn't waffle a whole ton because I only play one faction, at what point is your cutoff of when for serious contention for a big tournament do you start to really nail down facets? Are we flipping coins 2 days before or 2 weeks before?
Yes.
Okay, that's fair. That's fair.
So usually it depends on how much I have to get painted, which is almost always going to be some non-zero quantity.
Sure.
But I would say it varies. There was actually one time where it was Atlantic City and then Lone Star Open last year where I just I liked what I played at Atlantic City. It was Maul B2s, and I thought it was still going to be good for Lone Star, so I literally just left it in my bag. That was probably the only time I've like never waffled on a list. I just literally like left the whole thing in my bag, didn't do anything between those 2 tournaments. And then you have the other end of the spectrum, Nova Open in 2019. It was literally the night before, and I had finally decided the night before to play Rebels and run Luke, Leia, Wonder Twins, which at the time was like,
Sure.
a reliable, popular list.
Mhm.
I had been like dabbling a little bit with Empire. I had previous weekend played Palpatine for the first time. And I was like, that was fun, but I only have, like 3 games reps worth of Palpatine. I'm going to go with what I know. So I got to
Sure.
put my cards in my little card holder things. And I'm like, where are my card binders? I had left them at the store the tournament was at the previous weekend, and they were still there. Hopefully, I was thinking to myself, but this was the night before Nova Open. I have to be
Right.
up at Nova Open, the next morning at like 8 a.m. So there's zero chance that I'm getting these binders before the tournament starts. And the cards that were in my card holders, the little wooden tray thingies that I have,
Mhm.
was the list that I played the previous weekend, which was Palpatine. So I was like, I guess I'm bringing Palpatine. And that's what I did. So it's a spectrum, I guess.
So fate forced you to play a list that you had actually been practicing.
I mean, 3 games. I don't know if I would say that's
that is some amount of practice, yeah.
Which is more than I've had for. Yeah. I mean, the first time I played Empire, I went in cold to Invader League. So, yeah, and it turned out that, and I got lucky essentially. Palpatine. That was the Tauntaun first tournament of Tauntauns, and Palpatine is great against Tauntauns, so that worked out.
He is.
But anyway, yeah, it varies. It varies wildly. Usually about 2 weeks. I think I like to be kind of comfortable with what I'm doing, but it's definitely gone down to the wire pretty consistently. Like I'm sitting here painting. This is Gideon. I think I'm sitting here painting Inferno Squad because not last weekend, 2-3 weeks ago, I played at a local tournament, and I ran Empire with Inferno Squad, and it was great. But since then, even just today, there's been like 4 different lists for 4 different factions that I've been like, what about this? And yet I'm still sitting here painting Empire. So I don't know.
Well, that's an omen of sorts, I suppose.
Yeah.
So like a disease that has completely spread to me. And I'm all over the place, Kyle. It's so bad. It's so
Which,
bad.
As long as I've known you, Jay, like I've not really seen this. Usually it's just like # double heavy.
Yeah.
And,
so about the last 8 months or so, I've been playing a OP Luke Sabine list, and I'm like, okay. I've been railing on the podcast like the 10,000 hours rule, right? I'm like, I'm just gonna play this until I'm perfect at this list, right? I played it through Invader League. I did pretty well in Invader League. I played it at all these other tournaments. That's all I've been playing, and I've been doing very well with it, and it's been going great. And then something in my head broke, I don't know if it was mini extravaganza or the new releases or I don't know. Something happened and I'm off the rails, like legitimately off the rails now. And I played what is it, the battle force there, the rebel battle force,
Echo Base.
Echo Base. Yeah, sorry. I'm thinking because listen, we're doing order tokens for them and I'm calling them other things. And so I, I was trying to think of the real name. And so yeah, I've been playing Echo Base a lot, which I really liked. But then and this is a topic we're going to talk about. I gave my buddy Jeremy the list. I said, all right, I'm going to play a different list against this to find its weaknesses. And the list I built, I really liked. And I just kind of built it on a whim. But it was really, really good. And I was like, and it's a CIS list. And so I was like, well, maybe I'll play this list. Yeah. And then this morning, I was in the shower and I actually grabbed my phone off the sink because I had an idea for a list. I was like, what if I did Luke Sabine, but the Empire version of that? And I started building that out. And I'm legitimately all over the place.
What is the Empire version of that?
All right. Well, first of
no.
all, you got a lot more points to deal with, which was crazy in my head. So I'm going to log into my Legion HQ. Oh, for all your list building needs, legionhq.thefifthtrooper.com. It's the best Legion list builder, right, Ryan?
Yeah. I'm blinking twice because I'm not safe.
Yeah, everything's fine.
I think if you say it, it defeats the purpose.
So in my Luke Sabine list, you have the two operatives. You have Luke, OP Luke, and Sabine, right? And then what I had with them was I had the vets, two vets, two MKs, three snipers, and then a generic commander that's, with whatever upgrades and everything. So I was like, all right, well, what's the Empire version of that? So I said, okay, OP Vader, burst of speed, force push, seize the initiative. All right, Boba Fett, seize the initiative, emergency stims, right? Let's get Boba in there. Then I was like, okay, what are the comparable to the vets? I said, well, shore troopers. So I got two shore troopers, two mortars in there, three snipers. Okay. And I've had a significant amount of points left. And I said, okay, well, normally I would put a generic commander in here. I'm like, well, what if I put Krennic in here? Right. Yeah. So I have Krennic with strict orders, and then all that other stuff I mentioned, I'm at 794.
So my question there would be, what's your plan to get orders to the shore troopers?
Well, you wouldn't basically. And so, and like right now I don't, with the Luke Sabine list, I hardly ever have orders out to the vets. So it'd be the same style of play that I'm using now. I did flirt with the idea of seeing if I could but like seeing if I could somehow fit Death Troopers with the comms relay, but it won't work, right? With the points and everything.
Yeah.
Basically, your core troopers don't get points. What you're doing, and here's how I play Luke and Sabine. The rest of your army is basically just, they don't move much during the they just sit there, right? And they hide, get some heavy cover, maybe peekaboo shoot and stuff, but they really don't do much. So they don't need a ton of order control because it just doesn't matter. Whenever they get orders, they can do whatever they're doing because your two focus pieces are basically, and Kyle's played against my Luke Sabine list, your two focus pieces are on their way to like screw up whatever plans it is that your opponent has, and they have to deal with them. And generally what I have found is that I've lost both Luke and Sabine in games and still won because I still have a majority of my army left, right?
Yeah, they can buy you time.
Yeah. So I think the same philosophy would work, and I don't have to worry about them as much because they have red saves instead of white saves, right?
Right. Yeah.
Yep. Have you considered improvised orders instead of strict orders on Crown?
Yeah. I was going back and forth. Okay. I like improvised orders, but I mean, most of the time, the idea would be that you would have pretty much almost every turn you're going to have the order control you need. You'll have your orders to your primary pieces, which is Vader and Boba and maybe Krennic, right? You're going to have orders to them at almost all times. It gets weird with Implacable and Voracious Ambition. You may get the polls for Voracious and and you put them on there, and then Implacable you could just seize the initiative to Boba Fett, right? And so there's a lot of movement in there, and then with Boba Fett with emergency stims, and then using Vader's new ways to motivate him.
Yeah.
I mean, if you need to do a box grab or something with Boba
Mhm.
Fett, or you just new ways him, and he'll do whatever you want him to do.
I have no idea where you find the points, but part of me wants to see you slide Krennic out of there and throw Callus in just to take more Vader and Boba cards.
I really thought about that.
Because he's just going to sit in the back line anyway
Yeah.
and not do a whole lot. Might as well get.
I
more
was
cool cards.
playing this really cool Callus OP Vader list that I
Mhm.
really liked, but it always seems like it was missing like some oomph. You know what I mean? Because
Sure.
like the card play is really nice, especially with like ISB investigation, and you do it on a turn where
I don't even know if you take any Callus's cards.
you just use it for contingencies. Yeah.
Yeah, you just bring him for like same thing. Krennic's going to kind of be doing is throwing some tokens in the back line and letting you bring some more situational Boba cards.
ISB investigation's pretty good.
Yeah,
That's true.
I'd probably take that one over Flamethrower.
Yeah, that's fair.
But yeah, and I mean, but besides that, I mean, I built a like middle management list with Krennic and Callus, like just trying to like be like every turn I'll have priority. But really it just became a gun line, and I'm like, well, Pikes kind of have gun line locked down right now. So what can I do differently? But yeah, so there's that list. I don't know, man. I'm all over the place. I have a crazy separatist list that's got like Bosk, AAT, Kalani, 6 droids, and it's so crazy.
Two very different things to play and practice with. Yeah,
I know.
Did you see that separatist list that I posted today?
No, I did not.
Okay. It was it is 3 Black Sun Enforcers with the Magdet and the Vigo, 2 B2s with the HA and the T series, a T series commander, a Vigo commander, 2 Magna Guard with the rocket and situational awareness, and then a unit of B1s with rad cannons.
Oh God. Oh.
So between the 3 Black Sun, the 2 B2s, and the 2 Magnas, you basically have, what is that, 7 like super beefy range 2 units.
It's if you get in, you get in. That's
I mean,
trick, though.
It's only, it only has one mode.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
It's kind of a one trick pony, but it's a good trick.
It's a very good trick.
So yeah, it has some one of the things I like to do when I list build is I'll calculate like the average hits that it's going to put out, just kind of in aggregate. And then I also do the effective wounds of the list overall, again, in aggregate. So for those that don't know, effective wounds is basically the wounds of a unit divided by its save.
Right.
So for example, the effective wounds of like a stormtrooper unit, which is a red save unit with 4 wounds, would be 8, right? Because on average, if they have a 50-50 save, on average, you need to make them roll 8 saves to kill them, basically, is what that amounts to. So the effective wounds for this droid list with the Black Sun and the B2s is 140. And that does not include anything for armor. Most lists end up somewhere in the range of 90 to 100. Just for some comparison purposes. I made this list and then I did the effective wounds calculation. I was like, did I do this right?
Oh, man.
Yeah, I don't know.
Well, yeah, I mean, and so I don't know what it is. I don't know if it's, I wonder, now that we're talking about it out loud, I think what's happening is exactly what we're doing, is that there's so many options of
Mhm.
things you could possibly, not only that you could play, but what you could be facing, that
Right.
like every time you build a list, you're like, oh, I didn't really take into account this. And then
Right.
you're
Yeah.
like,
There's
okay,
there's always the thing that you may see across the table that you don't have an answer to.
right.
That you need to find a new list to have an answer to that, but you solve that problem, but create two more.
Yeah. And yeah, so it's been wild. I mean, I honestly, so I have, there's a big tournament up here in Syracuse at Millennium Games that I was going to use for my Nova practice. And I'm like, all right, whatever list I bring to Nova, I need to bring to this tournament. There's a lot of great players that are coming out to this. And so I'm like, this will be a good test for where I'm at for Nova. It's Monday evening as we record this, and I still don't know. I have no idea what list. I literally have no idea
That's
what
funny.
list I'm bringing.
Yeah, the waffle's a little easier for me because I have played one game as Empire and I accidentally cheated. So I am locked into one faction, and I lost. For the record, I did lose that game too. I cheated and lost. Uh, but the first points adjustment had just come out, and one of my buddies wanted to play against some of the new points, and so I built a list on the old points because I don't know how Empire works.
Mhm.
And but when sitting down to make a list, like my options are cut by 80% because I can only I don't have access to Shadow Collective or anything else. And you guys have known me long enough that I'm stubborn and I like to do things my way. So usually when I go into a tournament, and for like Gen Con, I went in with something to prove, and I went in for the couple weeks leading up to Gen Con to prove that Tauntauns are bad. I did not think particularly highly of them. Everybody else on the STABcast said you're crazy. So I put together a triple Taunt Echo base list
Mm.
and went 13-1. So across a couple of weeks of games. So
yeah, it's funny you bring them up. I've been thinking about them a lot more too, because I think I might have brought it up on the cast, but like, gun lines are big again, right? With pikes and everything, everyone's bringing gun lines. I'm like, well, what killed gun lines last time? I'm like, well, Tauntauns did, yeah. And I was like,
yeah, the taunts kind of struggle. I still think after playing so many games with them, they're still overcosted. I think their kit is fine, because they still really struggle against the pikes, because when you finally get to crash, they've already got 2 or 3 dodge tokens, and your dice pool is very good, but it's very small.
Yeah.
And so you're always trading inefficient with them. They're really good if you can stay up on activations, which is I was running a 12 act triple taunt list. As soon as act parity came up, my games started to slide sideways on me. But for me, when building a list, and what keeps me kind of away from waffling, is I'll usually, whatever I'm playing with, and it tends to change about every 3 to 4 months, I'll pick an idea that I want to mess with, whether it be a specific unit or a particular play style that I really want to focus on. And my list will constantly change, and I'll constantly waffle through things of that archetype. But I try to only change about 20% of my list event to event to event to keep some consistency in my practice. And once again, because I play single faction, I'm allowed to do that. That would be a nightmare to do otherwise.
Yeah.
Well,
Go ahead, Kyle.
no, after you.
I was gonna say, I think the other thing that's happened to it for me is, I've been on this mission for a while to build up. Like, I want to start doing some sort of like battle report or like video of like different techniques or stuff for us. And so like I've been on this mission to paint up all the factions. And so I have all of CIS completely painted. I have a large majority of Empire painted because I've been an Empire player for so long.
Sure.
And I have probably like 80% of Rebels painted at this point. So I think the fact that I have all this stuff painted, whereas in the past when I was going to a tournament or stuff, I'm like, wow, I don't have time to paint. So I'm only, this is what I have painted. So this is what I'm bringing. That has kind of diminished now. So now it's more like, so I have access to everything. Well, what should I do?
Yeah, and I think Ryan, your approach is I'd say that's the correct approach. if there's such a thing.
No, I don't think
r-
that there is, but yeah.
Just simply because like reps are good and consistent reps are better than
Mm-hmm.
if you're doing what me or Jay are doing, you're just kind of flitting from one list to the next consistently. I mean, I've gone into tournaments like having literally 0 reps with the list that I'm bringing. And like, you'll make mistakes as a result of doing that.
Sure.
And I've made mistakes as a result of doing that. What's the cliche? Practice makes perfect.
Something like that.
Or perfect practice makes perfect. Yeah, I would recommend doing what you described.
Well, I mean, the other side of the coin, though, is the practice that I miss out on is because I only play one faction. I have an understanding of when I see a Palpatine across the table from me, how it's going to play and operate. But if I've actually played even just 5 or 6 games with a particular archetype, I'm going to understand it better. And that is something that I know how to play against a Palpatine, but I don't know all the there's every time I play something new, there's going to be things that catch me out that I am not ready for.
Yeah.
And so I do think playing lots of different things gives you also a very broad understanding of what you're going to see across the table from you that I just don't have when I play a non-mirror match.
Yeah.
So I think there's benefits and there's pros and cons to both approaches.
Well, and I think that's kind of, I don't know, this might be a good segue, Kyle, for talking about. So one of the things I brought up to talk about was giving your list to somebody and having them play it against you, and then you finding either a list that it's weak to and playing it, or trying to find its weaknesses. And
sure,
I've actually done that a lot. I find that the most helpful, because the other thing is to not only what am I capable, because I know for the most part, if you've been playing a list enough, the weaknesses, so you'll go for those weaknesses. But it's interesting to watch other people play the list and go, I would have never thought to use Luke in that capacity, or
sure.
do something like that. That's really interesting. I didn't even think about that. And like, for instance, the Echo base list that I built has all 4 FD cannons, and
Degenerate.
yeah I put it in my buddy Jeremy's hands, and he's been playing FD cannons from the beginning. He always loved them, and so he was putting them on top of like buildings and in these crazy spots that I was like, oh yeah, right. Like, that's a really good spot for that.
Range 5's pretty cool when you're a foot off the table.
Yeah. And I was like, I didn't even really mentally it was like he was playing 3D chess while I was still playing. I was like, oh right, yeah. And so stuff like that is really helpful for me anyways. It's just like, hey, let's swap lists for this match, or can you play this list while I play something different? I think is always helpful.
Yeah, and even if outside of tournament prep, it's pretty common for you to see posts from people who are just like, I play with my buddy, or I play with my sibling or my dad or my son all the time, and I always play this faction and they always play this faction and he always kicks my butt. Like, what can I do against X faction? And one of the things that you can do is just like, you don't have to play the same one every time. Just like swap them, and then maybe your opponent will,
we'll figure something out.
Yeah. Or you'll have an appreciation more for the weaknesses of their list if you're running it. Like you said earlier, Ryan. So
yeah.
And that's why that's how I ended up collecting Empire. When I first started playing this game, I collected Rebels, and I was like, I'm going to be a Rebel only player. I love the Rebels theme. I love how they play. I'm just going to focus on Rebels. And
then you abandoned me.
Yep. And then I was like, you know what? I'm not actually going to like get into Empire, but I'm going to just kind of mess around with them enough so that I understand kind of the opposing view just from a difference in perspective. And then I started playing it. And I'm like, wow, this is really fun.
Red saves are pretty cool. Am I right?
Yeah. I have since
come on core units.
Yeah, exactly. More than just Luke has these. What is this? Yeah. So it's always good to get a different perspective.
Yeah.
One thing
it's a luxury I'm not super afforded, because my areas doesn't have a lot of Rebel players, like, period, at all. for me to hand my list to or practice against a version of it. Luckily, I do tend to play weird outside the box lists that not a whole lot of other people are usually playing. I like to always bring something to surprise somebody. But that is something that I could see a whole lot of value in, even if you're just having to do the sad boy thing and like set up on your kitchen table and run two lists against each other on yourself, just to step around the table and see what something else feels like. Just that mental gymnastics, I think, can yield a lot of results. And that's what I ended up doing with my Tawns list. Is I figured out where its weak points are, and luckily very few people can pick up on the fact that it kind of ignore the Tawns for 2 turns, wipe my 4 or 5 of my core, and my Tawns have to commit, and then I can't reposition afterwards and I lose. But like everyone sees the giant space llama and just wants to shoot it. But doing that practice of sitting down, either if you can have the time and a friend to play a whole game against your list, even sometimes just sitting down with some sticky cards, drawing out some battlefields, looking at objectives and deployments on where you can play and where you're going to struggle is absolutely huge. I don't think this is a skill you need an entire 3-hour game with a buddy for, although it would be the premium if you got it.
Yeah.
I've heard of people doing that, sort of just playing a game against themselves.
Mm-hmm.
For some reason, I just can't, like, mentally, I just can't do it. Like I've tried it. And then I'm always like overthinking it, I think, where I go to do something and then I'm like, wait, but other me is going to then just do this. And maybe that's just the value in it. And you don't actually
that is the value in it. Yeah.
You don't really like, but the problem is that I get stuck and I don't like progress through the game, because I have to then do the thing knowing that other me is going to then respond to that thing with, a different action.
Sure.
And I, like, for some reason, I just can't. I don't know. It's like a mental hang up for me. But I definitely see the value in doing that.
Yeah, I definitely can't play against. I'm with you. Like, I'm like, well, this is stupid. I already know what I'm gonna do. Like, what am I doing? Like,
Yeah.
it just,
Yeah.
It's a
Well,
weird. I think you gotta get in the right mindset for it. I'm not there either.
It requires some mental sophistication, I think, that
I
mean,
definitely don't have that.
but whatever switch that is that enables people, like, I can't flip that switch either. I mean, you hear of like famous chess players and stuff doing that sort of thing, and like, it's clearly very valuable. I just can't. Yeah, maybe I need to be coached on like how to do that properly.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, and it's just turning the one side of your brain off and not thinking about things for 2 minutes from both sides of the table and just looking at it at one and then hitting that switch. And that can be tricky to do. But also at the end of the day, I think it's also only, just like any practice, is only so valuable in a game where we introduce random chance through dice and order control. We can have all the best ideas and strategies in the world, but sometimes you're just going to flub a roll or spike a roll, and now the thing you thought you were going to do, you've had a big roll, and now you can proceed to a different avenue of opportunity that you've never seen before in all your practice games.
Yeah.
So,
and one thing
something about plans and contact with the enemy.
Yeah, one thing I think that is useful too is kind of fixing some of those variables. If you, one of the things that I like to do once I actually settle on a list, which happens from time to time, is kind of figure out what that list's primary weaknesses are, and then practice both those matchups, but also the specific objectives cards. Like, if I have a list that I know is bad at bombing run, I might ask like somebody else to play a list that's good at bombing run and be like, all right, let's play bombing run. Let's see how this goes. Or something like that, just to kind of like appreciate the weaknesses of a certain matchup.
Sure.
In a certain situation, and figure out how you're going to kind of like think your way out of that. So that's another reason why it's good to settle on a list earlier rather than later. So you can kind of do, even if you don't physically end up doing it on a table, do thought exercises like that, visualization.
Sure.
Yeah, I mean, it's weird, right? Because even if you do all that, like, even if you practice, even if you have thought about it, you've played at home, but when you get to the tournament, sometimes the tables like really affect, you're like, well, there goes all that. So how are we going to do this now?
Well, and
Yep.
honestly, I don't know if Kyle does the same thing, but I know I consider when I'm going to an event who's providing the tables, and that does influence what kind of list I'm building. And so I was worried going into Gen Con because I had all the people I had talked to, no one knew where the tables were coming from.
Yeah,
So I
yeah.
didn't know if there was a secret bunker of stuff or if we were going to be playing with like cereal boxes and soup cans. Um, and that definitely impacted my decision to bring 12 act tawns, because even if it's just a barren wasteland, tawns have got some of the most, like, just the sheer amount of wounds that rebels can get in dodge token generation. So I was
Yeah.
like, well, if I have terrible tables, this list will do okay still. And that's something that you can't control, but if you're able to consider. I will bring a very different list to a Nick Bodnar tournament than I will to like Adepticon, because the tables for a lot of are going to be designed in different focuses in different places. They're all good tables, but different people build with different things in mind.
Yeah.
That's something you can really consider.
100%.
Yeah. Yeah, I would say that, like, as for instance, like Gen Con this year, I think tables provided by Adepticon and were put together by Brad Nimizetsky, or whatever his name is, and just kidding, Brad. And Brad's wrote an article about building tables and for us, and yeah, I mean, like, these tables were great, but they were definitely dense, and
They
I
were
was like,
very dense.
I was looking at them from a vehicle standpoint and go, whoa, like, I don't
Yeah.
know how I would get a vehicle into the spots I would need them into. But yeah, you never know, right? Like, there's some places you go and you're like, oh, I'm so glad I brought double heavy because this is gonna eat everything alive. And then there's some you're like, yeah, so they're not gonna see anything. How am I gonna win this game? Like,
Right.
yeah,
So when
that's
you guys
crazy.
are waffling, do you guys take that into consideration? Or when you're doing your practice, do you try to like get a feel, if you're not providing the tables yourself, get a vibe and try to build tables like where you're going, or do you just kind of play on whatever's available?
I try to, like, yeah, kind of, like, if I know it's somewhere that I've heard they've been struggling getting terrain, I'll be like, yeah, let's pull a couple of these off of here. I think these tables are going to be a little bit thinner than what we have going on right now. But I think a lot of the waffling, it's almost like the table's like the fifth thing on my list of problems that I have.
That's fair.
So yeah.
That's fair.
It's definitely a component, though, for sure.
Yeah.
Particularly if I'm thinking of bringing like a force user. I want to know if I want to know what to expect.
Yeah.
And there are certain force user lists that are flexible enough such that if you end up on like an open table, you really don't care. The prime example of that probably is like Jedi Luke DLTs, because you have the DLTs and you have snipers, so you have some long range stuff to go along with Jedi Luke. And the same could potentially be true of like the new Shadow Collective Maul with a bunch of pikes, right?
Yep.
Like you have a decent long range situation there. But if you're bringing like Vader or like an Anakin list, you're gonna be in a more difficult position if you get one of those open tables than one of those other ones. So it's definitely, I mean, even just setting aside trying to sort of like guess what the specific tables are going to be like based on who's providing them and your knowledge of the history of what those person's tables are like, particularly if you're going in and it's just a total unknown. With waffling, like different types of lists have different vulnerability to bad tables, if that makes sense. Like,
for sure.
There are some lists that if you knew exactly what the tables were going to look like, excuse me, and you knew they were going to be like nice, balanced, good tables, they'd be like amazing. But if they weren't, like, that same list could be terrible. And you could have another list that's on those balanced tables is like less good than that other list, but on those less balanced tables is less bad off than that other list, if that makes sense. So it's like, it might be a worse list overall, like in a situation where tables are what you'd expect them to be, but it's also less vulnerable to like a bad table.
it's one of the things that spooked me away from FDs for a really long time, because they are, I think, especially before the 4 card flip for turn
Yep.
0, FDs were super table dependent. And I think the community, at least for North America as a whole, our tables have gotten a lot more consistent
Mhm.
over the past couple of years since the FD has been out. That it's, I think, a lot more profitable and stable of a pick.
Yep.
But for a long time, I think that was the shining example of a thing that you really had to think real long and hard about with it, when and where you're going to take it, because sometimes someone would get all their height 2 buildings and plop them down, and you could only see 9 inches in front of you, and then there were barren wastelands, and there wasn't a whole lot of in between in the dark times, the early days.
For sure. I mean, you look at pictures from what was it, like the first Gen Con?
I don't want to talk about it, man.
I think that was the first like actual competitive Legion tournament period for the game,
Yes.
right?
Probably on a big scale, yeah.
From a convention perspective. And yeah, it was basically like they ordered terrain to be made, and whoever was making the terrain only sent like half of it or something to that effect.
I will give them credit. Because I was a moron and I played all 4, like that Gen Con, all I did was play Legion. And it got better and better every day as they would like condense tables down, realizing all their heats weren't full, and just slowly starts to stack tables, because the tables that were there day 1 on Thursday were not the same tables that were there on Sunday. And it was rough, to say the least.
Yeah, I mean, they were pool tables basically.
Yeah,
like,
and I mean, yeah,
and it was one of those situations too where like, they had things like, I mean, we've learned a lot as a community.
Yes.
But they had like these big beautiful corner pieces that were like super pretty, like half of hillsides and stuff that were designed to be put in the corner of a table, and like it's not good for anything over there.
no, it's really not.
And you still see that sometimes. I think the difference is, and Kyle, you've played 40K. Ryan, I know you've played a lot of other games. I've played Fantasy, Warhammer Fantasy. I think in my head, when I played Fantasy, I kind of saw the places I wanted to play, but they were more abstract. Where I think with Star Wars, like there's all this iconic stuff from like places to like, like I forgot what tournament it was, but the TO had one like this huge sand crawler, and I was like, whoa, that's really cool looking. And then he put it right in the middle of the table, and I was like, uh-oh. Like, I was like, no, that's not a great place for that. And so, but as I blamed him, but I didn't really blame him, because I'm like, I get it. That's like a really iconic, cool piece and I mean, I did it, I think at Northeast Open, right? We had a table where I had this giant Millennium Falcon on it. And I was like, well, this is just for a fun tournament. I'm putting this on the table because it's cool, but it sucked to play on that table. But that's the problem, right? Because there's all this like cool, iconic stuff that you're like, I gotta put this on the table. Like, it's the Millennium Falcon. And then as you realize and you play a lot more and you become more competitive, you're like, oh yeah, no, that was a terrible idea.
That was a bad idea. Yeah.
And then you got like just thinking through stuff sometimes. And I think we're getting to the point where we're starting to adopt terrain from other games, like good terrain from other games. We've been getting stuff from like Infinity, taking what's good from 40K and bring that works for Legion and bringing it over. I think there's a lot of cool stuff. And I think the nice thing too is with like the Disney Plus shows, right? Like, I don't know if you guys saw the trailer for Andor yet, but holy smokes, that looks amazing. As they show us more planets, as they explore this galaxy and we see more stuff, we can bring more games in, or more terrain and stuff in from other games. Like Obi-Wan had that one planet where it had all the neon lights that was very much like Infinity, right? Like Infinity has the kind of like, and so I saw that and I was like, oh, well, now we can get some stuff from like Warsenal, and it like makes sense in this world now, instead of going, yeah, that's some planet that I made up. Now it's like, no, that's that one from Obi-Wan.
Yeah, and Legion's got cool enough dynamic terrain rules that you can kind of make whatever you want. And one of the things that kind of blew me away when I put on Rocky Top Game Con was we had a table contest, and we got so many hobbyists that wouldn't normally come to a big 64-man 5-round tournament, but they came because they're like, yeah, I'll come push my minis around, but I want to come show off this really cool thing that I've made. And you know, Jeremy was one of those guys at Adepticon.
Oh yeah.
He sent me home with a bunch of tables because he's like, I'm not going to be using these for a minute. You take them, put them in your terrain competition. And it was amazing to see these people who aren't, you know, primarily tournament goers, but want a way to express themselves in the hobby. This game, as opposed to a lot of other minis games, and I know we've kind of skewed off topic, but it's super cool that everybody can find their way to interact with the hobby how they want to on their terms.
Yeah. And to that, some of these, every once in a while on like one of the Facebook groups or something, or on the Reddit, you'll see some guy or lady that just joined because they wanted to show off some like diorama that they built, but with Legion figures. And you're like, dude, that is so good. You know, and they're like, yeah, I just bought these to build this diorama. And you're like, whoa, that's cool. I didn't even think about that.
Yeah, one of my earliest hobby memories from like miniatures wargaming. I started playing 40K when I was like 11 or 12. And you know, we didn't know what we were doing. So we basically played on like a ping pong table, and we'd like, you know, put like textbooks under a sheet and use like bottles and cans and stuff. And I'm like, man, we need some better terrain. And this was before you could just go on the internet and be like, how do I make terrain? Yeah. I'm like, all right, so how do I do this? I guess we need stuff, right? So I went in my backyard,
as you do,
and I got a rock. It was like this really nice like flat rock that you could set stuff on. And then I flocked it, you know, because they had like modeling flock. So I sprinkled some flock on top with some glue, and I called it a day. And my friend comes over to play some 40K, and he's like, man, that looks really good. How did you do that? I mean, that really looks like a rock. And I'm like, it is a rock. I found it in my backyard. He's like, oh, okay.
That's funny. I like when I'll start like looking up like, oh, hey, I want to build this like tree. I need to like, I want some like really cool looking trees. And the guy's like, so I just went out in my yard and I grabbed some branches from a tree and I glued them on here. And I'm like, all right. I mean, yeah, we could do that. That's not what I was looking for, but all right, sure, man.
And buy these 3D printers for nothing.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, exactly. The 3D print some sticks. Yeah. All right. Well, I will I'll round out our waffling. Just full disclosure.
Sure.
I can hear what you guys think. So I think I'm down to like a final 3 options. So I want to hear your input. The first is Iden Boba, basically what I played at that tournament, whatever that was 2 weeks ago. So it's like Iden Boba with some pikes
sure.
And Inferno Squad. The other would be Anakin Padme, also with pikes.
It's almost like they're good.
Yeah, and I think that they are particularly good in that list with Anakin and Padme because you know, pikes love dodge tokens, and there are few lists better at generating lots of shareable dodge tokens than Anakin Padme. They can also use the aims and stuff from Exemplar. It's basically like Anakin Padme are super good at supporting pikes, and because of how the points shake out, since you can take a capo instead of a commander, that saves you 15 points. And then you can also just cut endurance entirely from Anakin because you can take ploy as like a perfect flaw counter. So that's basically you save 21 points just like off the top there. And then you can kind of rearrange your core upgrades a little bit such that you can, you know, the quote unquote traditional clone centered Anakin Padme list just has 4 core troopers with heavies, and the pikes let you up it to 5. So it's just like a straight upgrade from the historical Anakin Padme list, that I ran at Adepticon, and that has been popular, you know, even before that. So that's really good. That's option 2, and then option 3 is just like straight boring Shadow Collective mall with a bunch of pikes. Because that's good, obviously. Now they would be extremely poorly painted pikes because this is right here is currently the state of my pikes. They're airbrushed, so there's at least 3 colors on there.
There you go.
But I have not done any detail brush work on them yet, so they look barely tournament legal. Let's put it that way.
My opinion here is I honestly would like to see you do something with Anakin Padme pikes, because I think I said something on a cast a couple episodes ago where it just nonchalantly was like, and oh yeah, and Gar is where Gar's at, it's fine. Because we've talked about it ad nauseum at this point, right? And somebody commented, it must have been the first time listening to the cast or something, they're like this huge comment on the episode about, we can't just pass this by. We really need to talk about how bad Gar is. I'm like, and my comment was, I don't think they're bad. I just think we haven't found anything that's really resonating yet. And I think there's so much for them that maybe there's something in there that, because this always happens. And I bring Lupo up all the time about this because no one was using saboteurs until Lupo started spanking people with them. And we're like, oh, yeah, that's super good. And I mean, so...
And at the end of the day, like, yeah, Shadow Collective's like the boogeyman, but we've had no major erratas or updates since LVO where like Republic was kind of everywhere with Padme, Saber, Yoda, Wookiees, and combinations therefore of. And even I saw a handful at Adepticon. Nothing's fundamentally changed. It's just people chase the shiny new thing.
Yeah.
And whenever I'm looking to build a list and prep for a tournament, and this may sound dumb, but I always try to figure out like what my goal for that event is. And like obviously the first goal is like win the tournament. But I don't do that. So I try to find other more novel goals for myself of things I want to work and find towards. And for Gen Con, for me, it was make Tauntauns work, and I did. So only losing one game to he who shall not be named. But
well, now you have to name, who did you lose the game to?
It's Al Paz, the guy that I room with at almost every convention. And
oh, right. Yeah, you and Al go to like every single.
And we paired round 1 at Gen Con. It was great.
Oh man.
that's how it goes. That's how it goes.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, figure out like what you want to accomplish. And for me, kind of like Jay, that the novel thing would be is if you're really considering playing Republic, like I would consider play Republic because I like to be plucky and prove people wrong.
Yeah.
Evan Paul, one of our writers, I posed this question in our internal Discord earlier today, and I think he said it very succinctly. He said, do you want to look cool doing well, or do you want to actually have a better chance to do well? I'll let you guys figure out which list is which in that.
Oh, sure.
I
mean, and if you play Iden Boba, we're just going to label you a meta chaser after following you. So,
to be fair, Kyle's been talking about playing Boba for a long time. So if he plays Boba, that was Kyle. Now, if he does add Iden to that, though, yeah, he's for sure. But if he plays something with Boba in it, he's been talking about this. As soon as Din Djarin comes out, we know he's playing Boba Din. Like that, he's been setting that up. I'm pretty sure that's going to be his world's list. And so like, especially with a gun that can just murder things for no reason and no actual rolling or anything. But
you do have to roll 1 dice, Jay.
Yeah.
Sure.
It's a red dice, but you do have to roll.
The map says you'll miss once per game.
Twice, roughly.
Did you just come on here and talk to Kyle about math? Because he's gonna correct you.
You're right. That's fair.
Yeah.
I'm from Tennessee. We know I can't.
Yeah. I don't know why you and your dumb little podcast came over here and started telling us about math, but it ain't gonna fly.
Yeah, and I think I said I seem to recall basically in the episode after they previewed the new Merc cards. I think that you were poo-pooing Boba Fett a little bit.
I still am.
And I think I said, I'm going to play him for Nova Open. So,
yeah, I mean, listen, I think Boba is good, but I think he needs support, like another character to support him to make him great.
Like Iden.
Like Iden or Din or or these or Vader. Like, but
Yeah.
he's not a central piece. I don't think.
Sure.
That's I think more of what I was saying.
That's fair, but he's also cheap enough that you don't have
I
to.
was about to say, I don't think he's costed like a central piece either. I think people want him to be one, to be something that his unit card is not.
That's fair. I think just sometimes we get caught up in the hyperbole of things,
Sure.
and Kyle was spouting off about how great Boba is. So what really, if you want proof how great Boba is, just he's your only named character in your list. Just bring him and see what happens.
Just bring him a commander, a 3 core, and have like a 600 point bid, 500 point bid.
Yeah,
he's so good. I don't need anything else.
Yeah, exactly. Big talk from a big man. Bring Boba. Come on.
Yeah, I'm probably leaning that way, just because I played Anakin Padme at Adepticon, and we were talking about those lists earlier, right? That with the terrain discussion.
Yeah.
Even with the pikes, Anakin Padme is like absolutely devastating if they can stay in one tight ball and fight at range 3. Like there is don't at me, Gar players. There is nothing better at range 3 than that combination.
Sure.
But you got to be able to set that situation up. And if you can't, there's going to be problems.
And range 3, you can correct me if I'm wrong here, but range 3 ain't what it used to be.
No, it's
over
not.
Over the past, year, almost everything has gotten at least an option for range 4.
Yep.
And I think that's just kind of where the game is settled, where range 2 units like B2s have kind of phased out. The only reason we see Magnas is because they have that range 4 rocket for the approach. I don't see many people running just 3 Magnas or the whip guys. So engineering that range 3 option has become much more difficult when you have to take 2 moves to move towards your opponent while they're just getting free shots on you.
Yep.
There's a new challenge for you, Kyle. How about an army with all whips and and range 1 to 2 weapons? That's it.
Well, that's like with that droid list I just referenced, right? The one with the B2s, the Magnas. I mean, the Magnas had rockets, but it's essentially like an all range 2 list.
Yeah.
Just triple black suns with scatters and triple whip pikes. There you go.
Yeah.
Double bus.
I actually think there's something to like 6 black suns. I haven't seen anybody do that yet at a tournament, but
it's an obnoxious amount of red saves to have to deal with.
Yeah, and I mean, if there's anything Gen Con told us, it's that even in small amounts, like Gen Con was all about black suns and buses, right?
Yep.
But even in small amounts, like those black suns just absolutely slap you.
Well, and when you bring your own line of sight blockers, like it really helps.
Right. Yeah, that's what the buses are, right? You just do a skid turn in front of your black suns, and then they just kind of like, walk up.
I wonder. I was thinking about this because I have this model painted and together was the snail tank, right? And maybe you could even put one of those in like a CIS army and use it kind of like a bus, right? Like the same.
On our Gen Con recap, we talked about how like the top placing CIS list, that's what it was. It was Kalani spooling up or maybe it was a generic super attack, but spooling up a snail tank with black sun on.
Black sun on it.
Terrifying.
Yeah. And you could even bring, I mean, those droid medics are 14 points. Bring a droid medic or 2 for those black
just
sun.
To be obnoxious.
Yeah.
I think there's something there. Yeah, for sure.
Those snail tanks are, I mean, they are fast.
Yeah.
Because of how big those bases are. I know that they're called snail tanks, but like those things teleport across the table.
Yeah.
But
I think the first time I played against one, it was a bad time because I underestimated how fast that thing was.
Yeah.
And losing activations, turn 1 to a giant snail tank is bad news bears.
Yeah. And like when it gets in that, It's got that Arsenal 2, and then it's got that range 2 gun that you combine with its main gun, and you just like you don't even need anything else. You just roll it in, you drop off those guys, and then shoot, and you're like, whoa! I just erased a unit like between these two things, you know. Yeah, I don't know. I'm gonna be honest with you guys. This cast did not help me at all. I'm waffling even harder now, and have come up with 4 more lists while we were talking. So I'm in bad shape, everybody.
Well, we can continue to waffle over the next few weeks.
That's true. You guys can.
Are you going to Nova, Ryan?
I sadly won't be there. I had to make the call between Gen Con and Nova and SoCal. So right now I've got SoCal on the docket. I was at Gen Con, so I gotta take a tournament off.
That's fair. I'm jealous. Nova is the only one for the rest of the year for me.
Oh no,
it is 20 to 25 minutes from my house, so that's an easy one.
Can't complain there.
All right. Well, you gentlemen have any final thoughts?
I think if you're listening to us still at this point of the podcast, number 1, you're great, and number 2, go listen to STABcast, or as soon as you're done. Yeah.
Well, then you've lost 4 hours of your life. Yeah.
Whenever they put out an episode. Did you guys put one out recently?
Last week, yeah.
Oh,
we do every other week.
Oh, is that what you guys are at now? I thought it was like once every 4 months. I don't know.
Whoa, sir. Whoa, sir. Listen here.
We do one podcast every 4 months, and it's 5.5 hours.
I mean, we do one episode every other week, and they're usually about 2 hours. We had our last episode was nice and respectably short at an hour and 20 minutes.
There you go.
We're working on it.
You could always like split them in half and do part 1, part 2.
I mean, we could, but
you're asking them to do a lot of work.
You're asking us to like cut our tracks in half and like re-record intros. Like, we ain't got time for that. We don't like each other that much.
That's fair. Well, thanks so much for coming on, Ryan.
Yeah, thanks for having me, guys.
Yep. And I would say good luck to those going to Nova, because I feel like we talked about that a lot today, but that's in 3 weeks. So we're gonna have I'm sure we'll have an actual like week before Nova episode.
And that's insincere, because we're both going to be playing, and really the good luck should go to us.
Yeah. Have fun. Have fun at Nova.
Yeah, good luck. We're coming for you.
Yeah, there you go. With my mall pike spam, maybe.
And mine unknown.
The badly painted mall pike spam.
It's becoming so bad, I may just end up showing up with my double heavy list just because I won't be able to decide, and I'll just be like, "Bah, this is what I'm bringing." I'm
gonna use the kitty cat stickers.
If mall pike spam gets too much worse, I keep staring at a 14 activation Cassian triple sniper triple FD list just to say go away. It loses to everything else, but it'll kill pikes.
Yeah. Well, I like that.
Four high velocity snipers there. I mean, that's why I did the item list. It's got 4 high velocity snipers in it.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
All right. Unfortunately, Anakin Padme also vulnerable to the same thing.
True.
If people start teching against pikes, that's going to be bad for Anakin Padme. All right. Well, let's close this out. We are the Notorious Scoundrels. I'm Kyle.
I'm Jay.
I'm Ryan.
Stay fresh, cheese bags.